Jordan Rose, introduce yourself. Tell me your name, what you do.
Hey, introduce myself. Well, my
Yeah.
name is Jordan. I am a life purpose coach. I help people with their dreams and their goals, both personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for having me, coming on here. And I'm looking forward to just discussing and chatting.
Yeah. So, how did you become a life purpose coach? What was the road to that? Like, what's the education for that? I saw a little bit of that in your book. Tell me about it.
Which part were you talking about? The little bit
George
in the book?
Brown to
Oh, okay, okay.
Seneca to George Brown.
Yes, yes. That was a different path. So the way
Yeah.
I got to the life purpose coaching was, I guess you could say when I was about 18, say like 2008, I kind of knew that there was life more than just, going to school, finishing school, getting education, house, kids, and then dying. I knew that there was something to my life, but I didn't know what it was. So I started the journey in 2008 to begin to discover my purpose and where I'm supposed to go and my direction in life.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was going on through, through life, whether regardless of the jobs that I had, I found myself always helping people. Like, okay, what do you want to be, or what are you good at, or like I could be in a warehouse folding clothes, but then I'm talking to somebody saying, "Hey, like, oh, you like to draw? Man, you should do this and you should do that." And I was just always inspiring people, regardless of the job that I was in, and even in high school, just the way I was always fascinated by people and what made people tick, what made people upset, what made people angry, what made people happy. There was a fascination naturally. So I think over the years from 2008 to 2018, I was just growing and developing. I also did some youth group work with youth. And so I worked with youth and helping them with their purpose and their goals. And so I realized, no, okay, I'm naturally doing this, naturally gifted to do it. And so by the time I hit 2018, I'm like, you know what? I had all the knowledge to write a book because I'm like, I realized I spoke to teenagers, worked with teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, talked to Black, white, Indian. It didn't matter. I realized I'm like, this whole purpose thing is a huge issue. I'm like, I didn't think it was an issue because I'm discovering, I'm finding myself. But then when I spoke to different people from different backgrounds, I realized this was a huge issue. So that's when I went into it from my book, and then I went into it on my own. So that's kind of the journey in a nutshell, how I went into life purpose coaching.
So tell me about the business that you have with your wife. Is that part of the life purpose coaching?
Well, I'm at the beginning of the business. It's starting with me 1st, and I'm getting it to the place where I can eventually come in. But she's in the background. She's helping me to make sure everything is good in terms of the whole marketing. In terms of she's not a marketer, but say, okay, I'd be like, babes, look at this, and she's just very insightful. She has a lot of wisdom, and she helps bring all the pieces to the business together. So she's helping from that sort of that role until we can get to the place where we both can go in full time. But I'm kind of spearheading it for now because she also has her full time business as well. And then so once this kicks off, then we both will go together. So that's kind of her role in the business. Oh, but you want to know a little bit more about it, correct?
Yeah, just your services, your business as a life purpose coach, and then
Yes.
led you to the book.
Right. Well, in first, the book actually led me to the life purpose coaching first.
Okay, all right.
Right. So what I did was when I was writing the book in 2018, the ideal of a business came while I was writing, and the name of the business is called Dreamers Nation. So as I was writing this book, Code 245, The Secrets to Unlocking Your Purpose, this name popped in my head, and I remember it was like in spring of 2018. I literally stopped. I'm like, Dreamers Nation. I wrote it in my phone. I'm like, what? At first, I thought it was like a shirt or, some kind of, I didn't really think that was going to be like business, but I'm like, this is something inspiring. So after I finished writing the book, I also turned my book into a program. So I took the concepts and principles from my book and I turned it into a program where I'm helping people personally and helping people professionally. So that's where the Dreamers Nation business started from, where the book, I took all that, turned it into a business. So now when people come to me with the life purpose coaching, I'm using the book and the concepts and principles from the book and turn it into an actual program for people. on both sides. So their dreams and their goals, or if they're having blockages mentally, emotionally, that's preventing them from their dreams, I deal with that as well. So that's kind of how it came to be.
Now that makes me wonder what direction do people normally go in when they start figuring out their purpose? I know in the book you have a process, but when people get to the eureka moment, as you call it, then what do? They got the ding ding ding, yes. Most of the people you work with, what is the next step for them?
Well, I feel like it varies because I've worked with young people and I've worked with millennials and I've worked with people over there old enough to be my parents. So I've different age groups. So I notice more so with young people, they have no clue where to start because they're still figuring it out. And especially when they're in high school, it's very difficult. So they might get their eureka moment while I'm working with them. Right, as we begin to discover what are their strengths or their skills or what they like to do or where do they feel they want to go, and that's probably where a lot of them get their eureka moment, right? Now the millennials or people around our age and up, I would say some of them are in their career, some of them are doing what they're doing now, but they still feel like there's still more, you know. So usually when I have one conversation it's usually the eureka moments happen when I have conversations with people because I'm helping them to connect dots that they knew was there, but I'm bringing it together. It's like, that's where they go, boom. Oh my gosh, I didn't know this can connect. And then, so the eureka moments are usually the people that I've experienced and worked with and helped or spoken to is usually when I'm speaking to them, it's like an inspiration they get because now everything's connecting. And then those who are old enough to be, my parents or whatever that I've worked with before or close enough to be that age, the eureka moment comes when they realize that the stuff that they did have is still valuable and still necessary. Because a lot of time when you reach 40s and 50s, most people think, oh, I'm done. I got kids, I got house, I got all kind of stuff. But then when they have conversations, it's like, oh, I could still do this. Even some of them even said, where were you 20 years ago? Where were you 10 years ago when I was a younger person?
So it might be a good idea for people who get this book, Code 245, for them to not only read the book and make notes, because I'm already read the book and make notes, but also read the book, make the notes, and book a conversation with you. Or have the conversation with your friends, with your family members, so that it doesn't just die on the page. Like you bring it into your life, because that's when you have the exchange. And sometimes I wonder, you don't always see yourself as others see you. They might be able to identify your strengths more than you do and say, you know what, you've always been good at sewing. You say, well, that's just a hobby that you've been doing it since you were 8 years old. You were good at sewing,
Right, true.
Yeah, conversation is important. So, okay, so now tell me about the book. 2018. I didn't realize you wrote it in 2018.
Yes, it was 2018. So the way it happened was like I knew in 2015 I was going to write a book. I knew I'm like, I'm going to write a book. I didn't necessarily know what at the time, but I knew I wasn't ready to write a book in 2015 because I felt like I still had some growing to do and some things to learn. So when I hit 2018, I found myself, studying on purpose and I was getting some principles from the Bible and stuff like that. So it was really inspiring me in terms of purpose and understanding who you are and all that kind of stuff. So when 2018 hit, I actually had a dream. You saw the dream in the beginning of the book. Yeah, so that dream I had, and that dream is what inspired me to begin to write because long story short, the dream was saying that I never got to my door of purpose because I was in fear and intimidation and I was in that prison. So once that dream hit, I'm just like, no, okay, I'm ready to write now. So I would say from 2015 to like 2018 was like, my level up period to be able to write the book in 2018. So
wow. And okay, and through this book, I have some questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead, hit me.
So who is the book intended for?
I would say, I know this sounds like, we always want to find the target market.
Yes.
And, I know but when I say this, I'm not saying this because I don't know. Let's go backwards. So from 2008 to 2018, as I said before, I've worked with young people. So most young people don't know their purpose, right? So this book would be very fitting for the younger generation, because a lot of them need some direction, they need some hope, and some inspiration for their future. So 100% for sure, it would be for young people. And my heart is with young people too. I love working with young people. So that's always something that I would be doing. So for sure it would be for them. But I also have to add other people, right? So I would say now the millennial generation, or the Generation X people, so like 24 to 45, I would also say it's for them as well, because a lot of us have been manipulated and brainwashed by systems and family and certain things that we have gone through, or certain passions that people had that they're in their 40s now that they wanted to do in their 20s, but for whatever reason it was shot down, or whatever the case is. So this book will kind of bring a little bit of inspiration to like say, no, you're still alive. You can still give your gift. You can still give what you're still here. So you're alive. So you can still give your purpose. So I would believe that it's also for them. And I would even say, I know we're supposed to find like 1 or 2 segments and target markets. I get it. But I feel like it's a book, honestly, for family, where parents and children, brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, it's a community thing. We all have a purpose. We all have something to offer this world. Like, think of the physical body. We need our hands. We need our nose. We need our ears. Each person in the community has something to offer. So I feel like this book would inspire is, what is your door of purpose? My door was 245, hence the name of the book, Code 245. That was my door. You might be 45, but you still have a door. You might be 12 or 18. You have a door too. So I honestly, I would say it's for the family. That's how I would say it. So.
Okay, so what specific insights does your generation have that other generations don't? So in Robert Greene's the Laws of Human Nature, he talks about how each generation has a specific focus that usually has something to do with the previous one. As the previous one was very totalitarian kind of, and the next generation is going to be all about liberation, and your ideas are kind of shaped by the focus of your generation. So what generation are you, and how do you think your ideas about purpose are shaped by the generation you're in?
Well, I guess according to whoever wrote these generational names, I would be considered in the millennial generation. So I would say that I feel like the generation before us, because there was a lot of, I would say, maybe the parenting from their parents was very intense. I feel like maybe a lot of them didn't really get a chance to discover purpose like that. I think our parents, I feel it was just, just cookie cutter, get a job, go make sure you get your education, make sure you have, you're solid. Don't venture out and don't go, nope, don't. And another thing too was music. When any of our parents heard that we wanted to do music or entrepreneurship or something that was outside the box of lawyer or engineer or any of those typical jobs, it was always frowned upon. So I would say for me, in the message I'm bringing is that, okay, the previous generation, which is our parents, you guys can still fulfill your purpose. Yes, you may have had an upbringing that was, difficult, but I'm also bringing a message for our millennial people is that, we have a purpose too. But what I would connect with the other generation is the discipline aspect. I would say the previous generations had more discipline, right? So even the book is saying that, like, when you go through your purpose and the process, it's not easy, because it's not easy, right? There's levels to this thing, right? So I think I'm bringing there was a discipline aspect with our previous generations, but then the inspiration from the previous generations, in a sense, depending on who you're talking about, I feel like there's more inspiration now I mean, for
Mm.
me at least,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I think that's where I would bridge the gap in terms of I'm bringing the inspiration that you can still fulfill your dreams now. And yes,
Mhm.
it may have been difficult back then. And I'm not saying it's not going to get any easier tomorrow. But what I
Mhm.
am saying is that you have a purpose, and you right now, regardless of your generation,
Mhm.
especially millennial generation, we can fulfill our dreams and goals in
Yeah.
this time. So that's hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Which authors? As I was reading, I was thinking, what authors are inspiring you? Because you have a lot of biblical references.
Mhm.
Are you going the way of T.D. Jakes, or who are the authors that are inspiring your writing?
I would say from 2015 to 2018, I think I
Mhm.
read a couple books and a couple of people I would probably mention. So I would say Dr. Miles Monroe, I would mention him. He
Mhm.
had a book on the power of vision. So I think that was
Mhm.
one book that kind of maybe really kind of helped me. I think another book that I was reading at the time was John Maxwell, The Five Levels of Leadership. So
Mm.
that was another one that kind of inspired me a bit.
Mhm.
And I would say I think I read Bob Proctor, You Were Born Rich, something like that.
Mm.
I think
Mm.
that
Bob.
was the third book.
Good old Bob. He's just really popular in Canada for some reason.
I think that was the book I read at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, the biggest inspiration was the principles that come from the Bible. So that's
Yeah.
why there's a lot of biblical references there.
Mhm.
But in terms of, I don't think during that time, yeah, I would say Miles Monroe. He's a pastor. He's gone now. He's not alive. But I think
Mhm.
maybe there's a inspiration there in how he delivered his message and how he spoke and stuff like that. So I would say maybe that was the inspiration
Yeah.
in terms of the book. So I'm guessing that's the combination, I would say.
Yes. Whose writing do you like now? Like, are you reading uh, books? Are you reading newsletters? Are you reading blogs or social media? There's some social media accounts that are all writing, and
Mhm.
what do you enjoy reading now?
I think for me, I remember in school, I used to hate history. I used to hate
Okay.
history because the way it was being taught. So
Yeah.
I think for me now I'm trying to connect all the dots of history. So
Mhm.
I'm reading a lot of things on history. So it's not necessarily who is giving the history. I just
Mhm.
want to know, is the history true?
Yeah.
And can I connect it with the biblical history
Yeah.
of the people in the Bible? You know, who are
Mhm.
these people, and
Mhm.
connecting it with different things. So I think I would say what I'm enjoying now is
Mhm.
history, the truth about history and how everything came to be and how we got here. And because I never used to like it before because of how it was presented to me, but now I'm
Mhm.
realizing some other things like, oh, this was here. Oh, ooh, this is actually. So I would say that's where I am now in terms of reading material.
Cool, cool, cool. That's good.
What
To
happened? What happened?
No, well, I'm thinking, do I recommend to you, since you're reading about history, is Black Labor, White Wealth.
Oh, you can. Okay, you can recommend. I'm there, so you can recommend
Yeah.
any book, and I would be open because as I said, there's a lot of things that I didn't know about history, especially
Mhm.
Black history, that I'm
Yeah.
learning now, especially
Mhm.
what's connected to the Bible concerning Black history and
Mhm.
different things like that. Where I'm like, oh, so that's what's interesting me now.
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
really reading self-help books right now. I'm
Mhm.
not there necessarily right now.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'm learning the history of how everything came to be. So yeah,
Mhm.
you can recommend
This
some
is
books.
Dr. Claude Anderson. This is American and European history. It's the history of the Europeans who came to colonize America, and
Yes.
how and why they started the slave trade, and how that bleeds into current American laws. He's a lawyer and
I'm
a
actually reading a book
politician.
now called Hebrews to Negroes. So
Mm.
it's
Interesting.
a book like this thick, and it's
Mhm.
literally sharing who the Hebrews are
Mhm.
and how the Hebrews came to be and why they're now termed Negro now. So it
Mhm.
goes into like the just exactly what you said about the book that you're recommending. It's the same
Mhm.
similar kind of thing, and it connects all. Black people in America and the Caribbeans and Africa, and it really connects who are the Hebrews, and you know, it's so just I love that stuff.
Very interesting.
I
Very
love that
interesting.
kind of stuff.
So you must be a Jamaican.
Parents are Jamaican, yeah, man, yeah.
Of course. When he said in the book in the dream the guy had dreadlocks, this is a Jamaican nation. Obviously.
Yeah, he had locks. Yeah, he had locks.
Obviously.
Yes.
Jamaican moment. Okay, so another interesting part of the book is I noticed you use the word mundane and average a lot. Like people don't want a mundane or average life. But today...
They don't want or they do?
Well, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think the direction that I was going with that aspect of things is that I think a lot of people think average is it. Right? Even if they want something different, this is what they're being presented. So this is the norm. So I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with the, you know, get an education, get the house, family, marriage, kids, boom.
Well, that's interesting you said that, because today Toronto Real Estate Board is talking about they want to come down on people having flipping houses, basically. And they say the flipping is driving the price up, because now the average price of a house in Toronto is $1.1 million. 1.1
It's
million.
expensive. Right.
So how can the average person afford that? They can't. So now there's a housing shortage, right? And it's driving rents up. It's driving condos up, you know, whatever. So what used to be average in generations before is now out of reach for a lot of people in millennial generation and younger. So I was just wondering, how does that affect how we think about, you know, quote unquote, settling? Because those basics are not really settling. You have to fight and crawl to get up there on the $1.1 million scale. You have to really work hard to be up there. So how does that affect, you know, thinking about your purpose?
That's a phenomenal question. So I think here, this is my take on that. I think, so let's put it this way. So let's go back to the average aspect of things. So if people are being taught to be average on a constant basis, but, perfect example. Let's think of inflation as an example. Let's think of that as an example. So say you're getting $17 an hour and say inflation is, let's say 1%, whatever, right? And then inflation goes to 2%, but you're still getting $17 an hour. You're not leveling up. You're staying, you're maintaining that average, right? And then inflation goes to 4% and you're still getting 17, right? So in a sense, you're not even necessarily average in a sense, because as things are progressing, you're not progressing, right? So now, in regards to that example, now when it comes to purpose is all about progression, right? Purpose is never about staying still, and it's not to say that, you know, just because someone is someone's dream is this level and your dream is this level doesn't mean yours is less. It's just, this is what's on your heart to do. So it's not necessarily that this person is greater and yours is less. It's just that each person has a capacity for their purpose. But what I would say is there has to be a progression, right? So when people are remaining on average, where their average pay, average lifestyle, average mentality, when things are increasing, and that's teeth in itself. This whole increase thing is, but that's another thing. So, but I think when it comes to your purpose, right, there's an equation I wrote in my book: process plus progress equals purpose, right? So what is the process that a person has to go through, the steps that a person has to go through to level up, right? Not just stay average, not just stay what they've been doing for 10, 15 years. Because as things are, because remember, society's progressing. So if you're not progressing, but society's progressing, then yeah, the average person can't do. We did 1.1 million in Toronto because the jobs that they have are only giving them so much to only sustain a certain level of living.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So with your purpose, and so process plus progress. So progress is the growth and development towards your purpose. So how are you growing? Physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially? Like, what is the growth and development of that person to now fulfill their purpose? Because when you're fulfilling your purpose, you're never staying on one place. You're not. You know, you no.
Well, it depends on how you define what your purpose is. What is specifically the purpose? Maybe it's to achieve a certain thing. You've achieved
right. So do you believe that purpose so someone that's attaining purpose is just this? Is that what you're saying?
No. I think it changes over time. Like you feel or know that you are meant to do this one thing. You attain the thing, but you have to then maintain it.
Right.
Not just you do the thing and then drop it. Then you have to maintain that thing, whatever that is. You know, maybe it's to be a great businesswoman. Maybe it's to be a fantastic mother. That doesn't just the day I drop the baby and I'm done. Fulfill my purpose. It's over.
No.
It's like, yeah, you just started.
Right.
And this is a lifelong thing. This is for the rest of your life.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's not staying the same, but it could be sticking with one calling. It could be one thing. It could be I'm called to be a priest, and that's it. And you be a priest for the rest of your life. But I don't know.
I would say this. What I would add to that is we have to discover what that is. It's unique to each person, right? That's why in 2008, I had the mentality in 2008. I'm like, who am I? Who's this person? What am I supposed to accomplish? Like, where am I going? Like, that's how this whole journey for me started. Yeah. And it's still progressing. Yeah. Mind you, I have a lot more clarity of where I'm going, what I want to do. But also, even when you're in your purpose, it's a journey, right? Because I think we also been trained in school, in the school system, where you have one thing to do and you only do it that way. You don't change it. There's no curves or whatever. You just find that one job, you do it for 40 years, you retire, and that's it.
It doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Yeah. And also to agree with you about the school system teaches you that one person has the answer. So wait on them to tell you what to do and you just repeat that. Whereas life is about you doing the work to figure out what the answer is. You have to continue on doing that work to figure out your answers as you go along.
I agree. And I think that's what has happened is that a lot of us have been in the school system and that's why when I've worked with young people, they're freaking out because in their minds, all of them tell me that I don't know which one I want to choose because what if I choose the wrong thing to do for the rest of my life?
That's right there. Boom.
Right?
Boom. That's it. And
right?
That's the thing.
Right? And the journey of life is nowhere near close to that. Yeah. Right, like as an example, like I love music. Growing up, I did musician, producing stuff, all that kind of stuff. When I was finishing high school, I wanted to do music and business. And that's why I went to George Brown and Sheridan and stuff like that. But where I am in my life right now, I still enjoy music. But right now, I'm now more about teaching, helping people finding what's their music, what's their version of their purpose. And it's a journey. Like you could be 21 and you enjoy something now, but then when you're 31, because you're developing and growing and you're going through progress, right? You might be in a different mind space.
Yes.
Where you might not necessarily do the same thing, but you might take the skill you have and it might be revamped into something else.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But they're not teaching the children that. They're just teaching one job, one career, 30 years. That's what you do.
Yes.
You put your hat down when you retire. You have your grandkids and your kids and your grandkids. and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. No,
Mm-hmm.
so that's not my message. That is just one thing and that's it. But
Mm-hmm.
what in order for you to search for your purpose, I think what
Mm-hmm.
has happened for people is that
Mm-hmm.
they're searching for their purpose outside of themselves. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to find it in social media. They're trying to find it in that person or in that
Mm-hmm.
celebrity or in that video game or in
Mm-hmm.
that virtual reality or what where
Or
somewhere
in that
else.
relationship.
Mm, or
Sorry, women, but we tend to do
or
that.
or in their children.
Yeah.
Come on, come
Convicted.
on.
Are you trying to convict me right now? Or
Or they
what?
live or
Joking.
they live the
Joking.
life that they wanted to live through their children.
Right.
To
Absolutely.
you know what I'm
100%.
saying? You
100%.
know,
Yeah. Yep.
so
Yep.
yeah, no, I no, life is a journey, and I even
Mm-hmm.
give a concept in the book about the donkey example,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
where you're on the donkey, and then sometimes people will tell you how you should do your journey, but at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, there's going to be some right turns, there's going to be some
Mm-hmm.
left turns, right? But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, it's a journey towards discovering yourself. And once you discover yourself, you develop yourself, and once you develop yourself, you deliver it to the world.
Awesome. 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 Yes. Um. Okay. So, okay, what if other people don't value your purpose? It doesn't bring you money, or, a lot of artists aren't discovered until after they die. What if you've discovered your purpose, you're happy in it, but nobody else gives it any value? What do you do then?
I say this, okay?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
When you are fulfilling your purpose, it's never about you. So
mm-hmm,
if there is someone who doesn't value what you're doing, I would question if it's your purpose.
really?
I'm not saying it isn't, but I would question it because your
Mm-hmm,
purpose is meant to inspire and impact somebody else. It's never your purpose is never because think about it. If I'm fulfilling my
mm-hmm,
purpose only for me,
mm-hmm,
that's
mm-hmm.
kind of
I
that'll make
hear
me
what you're saying with that. I hear what you're saying, but I'm also thinking Van Gogh. Nobody cared about his paintings. He died in obscurity, and he was dirt poor, and it was in the insane asylum. And it wasn't until years later, Galileo was hated by the government of the time and was executed. And then it turned out to know all the things about the universe. So there are a lot of people whose value is missed by the time that they live in, and it's not until later that people give them
mm.
credit and find something of value in what they did.
So would you say okay? So would you say then is the
Mm-hmm.
timing is the issue or the fact because the fact for me is it
Mm-hmm.
still became valuable. Maybe not
Yes,
in the
yes,
time that the
right.
person was because you know how you hear the
Mm-hmm.
saying that some people are ahead of their time.
Yes, yes.
You know how you hear that saying where
Mm-hmm.
they're just ahead of their time, and then
Mm-hmm.
now the time caught up with where they were, and
Mm-hmm.
now they
Mm-hmm.
finally see the value in what that person was trying to do
Yes.
because that generation just wasn't in on the frequency level to even grasp
Mm-hmm.
what that
Mm-hmm.
person was trying to do or accomplish.
Yes.
Just for me when it comes to purpose, purpose is valuable. Purpose
Mm-hmm.
brings value.
Mm-hmm.
For me it's impossible to have purpose regardless of the degree of value someone thinks it is. Anything that has a purpose has value to any degree, regardless of
Mm.
how. But it's also our perspective of what we view valuable too,
Right.
right? Because someone could be fulfilling their purpose and it's
Mm-hmm.
valuable for the individual because they're releasing their purpose, but someone
Mm-hmm.
could reject that and say, "Yo, you're trash."
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
it all goes back to the perception of each person and the generation that is
Mm-hmm.
experiencing that person's purpose as well. I would
Right.
say that purpose always brings value. It's just how that person, the recipient, how are they receiving the value of that person's purpose?
Right.
That's what will determine it.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to quote some of my favorite of your favorite quotes back to you. So on 21, he said, people want the luxury without the work and wealth without having to put your hands into something. You have to be so
Mm,
absorbed in the cycle of mediocrity that it's hard to break out. This was me for so many years. I had big dreams, but I did not want the work that came with them. I would be in the same place year after year, not accomplishing anything. Every success story has a process that the person or people went through. The first key to the process is that you must go through to grow through. You will start to understand this as you begin to understand what the process entails. I like that because you admitted it's not just you giving advice, like do this and do that.
Yeah.
I was there too. I'm guilty of this. I like that. And also that there is a process. It involves work, and that you have to start doing something in order to receive something. I like that.
Thanks.
Another favorite quote. 26. One thing you need to understand is that when you are to fulfill your purpose, it's always for people. It's never about you and what you're doing, or what you've been created to do. The greatest satisfaction you'll ever get is not when you're the star of the show, but when you help others to succeed. When I help my music students get better with their instruments and with their lives, it's incredible. When I started teaching people some of these concepts and seeing the changes in their lives, it gave me the greatest joy. This is what life is about. For you to understand this, you need to begin to get over yourself and start looking at the bigger picture. I like that. I like that too. And that's what you just said about
Right.
finding purpose. Yeah.
Definitely.
What was happening with Sheridan and George Brown? Blah.
Okay, so that's a good story. So what happened is, and I think this is why it's important to have some guidance, right? And not try to do life on your own. So I knew when I was 18 that I wanted to do music and the business portion of music. So my thought process was, you know what, let me do the business side of it first, and then let me do the music side after. So what I did was with Sheridan, I'm like, okay, let me take this business course because I want to know the business side, and I got to know the business side if I'm going to do music too. Not knowing that there's actual programs out there that actually have music and business combined, right? But I didn't do my thorough research because one, I was just, okay, let me just do it myself kind of thing. And two, actually, before I continue with that, I actually wanted to stop going to school for like a year or so and actually save up money to then go into, but out the pressure of family and my mom that no, if you don't go to school now and you go to school later, you'll never go back, and you won't have the school juices or whatever, the school whatever. So I reluctantly, I was like, okay, whatever. So I said, okay, I want to do business and music. So I just rushed into the Sheridan. But when I got into the Sheridan program, I'm like, yo, I feel like I'm in high school. This program is trash, right? And I'm like, I don't this this is not what I want to do. So I came out of the Sheridan because I'm like, and mind you, I was like 2-year program. I came out like what 2 months before the program was done, or 3. I know. I don't ask me why. Don't ask. I think I was just dreading it so much. I'm just like, you know what? Or maybe it was like 4 months or something. So yeah. So then I came out of the Sheridan program, and then what I did was I realized I'm like, shoot. And I was 18, 19, so I'm making dumb choices, right? So I'm like, you know what? Let me go and at least finish the business program. So that's when I went to George Brown, because I'm like, okay, let me just finish it at George Brown. But then I realized I had to start at the beginning because the issues that I created at Sheridan transferred over to George Brown. So they brought me back to the beginning, and I was just like, no, I'm not started over again. So I guess that's the journey that happened where I was trying to find my path. When had I properly had the guidance from someone or properly researched it on my own, I would have found a program that has business and music in one, and I would have been to higher heights with my music had I had proper guidance. So I'm using that as a lesson to tell people it's okay to get the guidance and da.
But you eventually landed in the right spot.
Yeah, now, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Eventually.
You got there. Well, what's next? What's next for you?
What's next? So I'm going to be printing physical copies of my book, because in 2018 it was just the ebook. But now I want to take that to the next level, have some physical copies. I'm also going to do the audio book version of the book. So I'm excited about that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Also, I've revamped my program and made it a lot better. Because sometimes, you realize when you have a lot of creativity and imagination and you kind of put those things to the side, but then
Mhm.
you realize later on that no, the things that you put to the side is actually the things you need to actually use in order to
Mm.
get to next level. So I had to now go
Mhm.
back to what I came up with in 2018 because I'm like, no, this is actually, I was using some of it, but I'm like, let me now use it even more. So now
Mm.
I'm now bringing my programs to the next level. And yeah, so I would say that's what I'm doing for now. I won't reveal everything right now, but
Mhm.
for now I would just say the audiobook, the physical copies, I'm upgraded my programs that come with the book,
Mhm.
and that's pretty much what I'm working on right now.
Awesome. Well, I want to taking a page from Lewis House. I always get caught while listening to his show on YouTube. I want
Mhm.
to acknowledge you for admitting, which is so important in self-help books or instructional books. You want to know what experience does this person have, and
Mm,
they living on the tops of the mountain doing everything right all the time, and they're telling me how to live a perfect life. And no, you talked about your ups and downs and your roadblocks and how you overcame those. So, it takes courage to be honest about your
mm.
own journey. So I want to acknowledge you for that, and
Thank you.
also acknowledge you for, a lot of your scripture quotes and using that as your source, which is wise, as a
Mm,
way to direct people towards finding their purpose, because that's another way of saying, I don't have all the answers, I don't have the answers. There's a book, you can read it, and you can help that can
right,
help you with
right.
your journey, because that's also a journey. It's not a book where you just read and throw it aside and be like, let me get back to my life.
Right. That's a process.
Right? The Bible is a process too. So, I want to acknowledge you for using that as a guide, which is wise to do
Thank
and
you.
not always easy to just
No, it's not.
spew the answers and say, I got the answers, guys.
And I think that's what I was learning too, because
Hmm.
you, as a leader, you sometimes feel like you have to have all the answers, because if you don't
Hmm.
have all the answers, then you're not a good leader. And that's not true.
Hmm.
That's not true at all. Every
Hmm.
leader is growing. Every leader is developing. So they can
Hmm.
only answer as much as they know at the time that they're being asked, or whatever the case is. But
Hmm.
like I wrote in my book, there's a section where there was a time where I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't write this book. And I was struggling to write this book. And I was in seminary at the time. And there's this a snippet of this guy's book, where he said, mind you, his book was like this thick. And he said, I'm letting you guys know right now that all this information in this book about, I think it was about preaching or something like that, that I'm
Hmm.
an amateur. He's like, I'm telling you right. So I'm learning, me is
Hmm.
learning in this book from a guy who's saying he's an amateur, but he said if he waited to master everything in his book, he would have
Hmm.
never written his book. He
Right.
would be like the guy going to school over and over, never graduating, becoming an old man. So when I
Hmm.
saw that,
Yeah.
I'm like, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm mastering everything in my own book either. But you
No.
know what? I'm gonna write it to help people as I am continuing to grow and develop as well.
Exactly.
So
Very good. And where can people find you? If they want to find the book, they want to follow you. Where do they go?
they can go to the website www.dreamersnation.com. You can get all the information there.
Hmm.
Social media is Dreamers Nation Official. So whether that's Facebook page, Instagram, or LinkedIn, just
Hmm.
Dreamers Nation Official. And Dreamers is plural, because sometimes someone might put Dreamer Nation. No,
Hmm.
Dreamers Nation. So either the website or my social media.
Awesome. Thank you.